Is Donald Trump really the tough guy people think he is? A lot of people seem to believe that Donald Trump is some kind of tough guy, a strong leader who stands firm in the face of adversity. But is that really the case when you take a closer look? The image he presents starts to crumble. From his reliance on heavy makeup to his public tantrums, Trump often comes across as more fragile than formidable. Even celebrities like Bautista haven't held back when pointing out these contradictions, exposing the former president for what he truly is. But what is it about Trump that has people questioning his so-called strength? Let's break it down. The makeup and the imagine of the most noticeable things about Donald Trump is his distinct appearance. His skin always has that unmistakable orange hue, and his makeup looks caked on, as if applied with a paintbrush rather than a makeup sponge. It's hard to ignore, and many people have pointed it out over the years. Bautista, known for his blunt and unfiltered opinions, didn't hesitate to make a joke about it. He called out Trump's over-the-top makeup routine, highlighting how it's impossible not to notice. And let's be honest, he's right. Trump's makeup isn't exactly subtle. The thick foundation, the unnatural tan, and the sharp contrast around his eyes make it clear that this is a man who is highly concerned with his image. But what does that say about him? For someone who claims to be a tough, no-nonsense leader, why is he so obsessed with covering up his natural appearance? It's a small but telling detail that raises questions about the authenticity of the image he projects, avoiding the tough battles while some may view Trump as a fighter. History tells a different story. For instance, when it came time to serve in the military, Trump found a way to avoid the draft. His father reportedly paid a doctor to say that he had bone spurs in his feet, giving him an excuse to dodge the Vietnam War. It's an ironic contrast. Many of the same people who view Trump as a strong leader also admire military service. Yet Trump himself did everything possible to avoid it. Then there's his physical presence. For a man who boasts about being tough, he doesn't exactly exude strength. His posture, his movements, none of it aligns with the image of a powerful, commanding figure. Even something as simple as holding an umbrella seems to be a struggle for him. And who can forget the infamous moment when he had to use both hands to drink a glass of water? These little moments add up, painting a picture that's quite different from the persona he tries to sell to the public. The tantrums and the fragile ego, perhaps the most obvious contradiction in Trump's tough guy image, is his behavior. Tough leaders don't whine about every little thing. Yet Trump has spent years complaining about how unfairly he's treated. Everything he loses, he claims, is rigged. When he lost the popular vote in 2016, he said it was rigged. When he was convicted on 34 felony counts, he said it was a fraud. Anytime things don't go his way, he plays the victim rather than taking responsibility. Bautista didn't hold back when calling out this behavior. He compared Trump to a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum in the driver's seat of a truck. And honestly, the comparison is spot on. From shouting at his staff to lashing out on social media, Trump's inability to handle criticism is one of his defining traits. He demands constant praise, surrounds himself with people who won't challenge him, and immediately turns against anyone who dares to disagree. These aren't the qualities of a strong leader, they're the behaviors of someone deeply insecure. A president obsessed with appearance. One of the most fascinating aspects of Trump's presidency was how much of it revolved around maintaining his personal brand. Instead of focusing on real leadership, he seemed more concerned with how he was perceived. He constantly bragged about crowd sizes, TV ratings, and how people talked about him in the media. His speeches were often filled with self-praise rather than substance, and he never missed an opportunity to remind people of how great he was. But what does it say about a leader when they're more focused on how they look than on actual governance? Trump spent his presidency more worried about media coverage than policy. Even his infamous spray tan and exaggerated hairstyle seemed to be part of a carefully crafted image, designed to make him look larger than life. But as Bautista and countless others have pointed out, no amount of makeup or staged appearances can cover up the reality of who he truly is. Fear and fragility. Despite all his tough talk, Trump is known for being afraid of some pretty surprising things. Reports have surfaced over the years about his deep fear of germs, his dislike of animals, and even his apparent fear of birds. There's also the widely circulated claim that he's terrified of rain, which is why he often avoids outdoor events when the weather isn't perfect. It's a strange set of fears for someone who claims to be the strongest leader America has ever had. Bautista and other critics have joked that Trump is ultimately scared of one thing more than anything else: being exposed as weak. He constantly needs to project strength because deep down, he knows he doesn't actually have it. That's why he lashes out at critics, why he avoids tough situations, and why he surrounds himself with people who will never challenge him. The real cost of this leadership at the end of the day: this isn't just about Trump's makeup, his tantrums, or his fragile ego. It's about what kind of leadership America truly needs. Bautista and many others have pointed out that the qualities Trump lacks: humility, emotional control, accountability, are the very qualities that make a strong leader. Instead of addressing real issues, Trump distracted people with theatrics, treating the presidency like a reality TV show rather than a serious position of power. For many Americans, Trump's leadership wasn't just frustrating, it was embarrassing. His bizarre speeches, his endless grievances, and his inability to act like an adult on the world stage left the country divided and exhausted. When he ran for re-election in 2020, people like Bautista made it clear they couldn't stand another 4 years of this spectacle. Some, including Bautista himself, even said they would consider leaving the country if Trump won again. That's how deeply his presidency affected people, not just politically, but emotionally and culturally. The legacy of a tough guy. Trump has built his entire public persona around the idea that he's a tough, no-nonsense leader. But the reality, as Bautista and many others have pointed out, is quite different. From his obsession with appearances to his inability to handle criticism, Trump has proven time and time again that he's more fragile than fierce. His constant need for validation, his fear of losing, and his inability to take responsibility all point to someone who is anything but strong. So, is Donald Trump really the tough guy that so many of his supporters believe him to be? Or is he just a carefully crafted image, held together by spray tan, makeup, and a never-ending need for attention? No matter how much he tries to convince people otherwise, the truth has a way of coming out. And as Bautista and many others have made clear, the reality is far less impressive than the myth.